Tache Delay. My name is Khenpo Drime Dawa, Dr. Dean Peelstick. I'm president and teacher at the AWAM Tibetan Buddhist Institute. And welcome to our 9th talk on this series of the Divine Feminine Women in Tibetan Buddhism. And our talk today is on Prajnaparamita, the mother of all Buddhas. Prajnaparamita is also the perfection of wisdom texts. And as a part of that, we have texts such as the Heart Sutra and the Diamond Sutra, or the 8,000 line of perfect wisdom scripture. And Prajnaparamita enters the tradition earlier than some of the other figures that we've looked at in earlier talks. Yet she is especially important for the female personification of ultimate wisdom, fitting end to our series of talks on this topic. As the mother of all Buddhas, she is also the source of all Buddhas, transcendent wisdom itself. So let's look at some background for her. First, the literature appears in around the 2nd century, though there's some evidence of earlier sources as well, or earlier origins. The texts are considered to be sutras. Normally, sutras are considered to be the words of the Buddha, but there are exceptions to that, and these are one of those exceptions, a small class of sutras not attributed directly to the Buddha. It's part of the Mahayana tradition, the path of altruism. There was no precedent for that foreshadowed the appearance of Prajnaparamita. Previously, there were earth mothers, fertility, and so forth, but all of a sudden, Prajnaparamita appears rather swiftly. Was it a matter of timing was right? This was a period in which the Divine Feminine was growing quite rapidly, so perhaps that was the case. She appears to represent a revolutionary shift in Buddhist consciousness, according to Miranda Shaw in her book, The Buddhist Goddesses of India. Even precious Buddha relics were sanctified by the presence of the perfection of wisdom. Similarly, Prajnaparamita is the source of sacredness of stupas. The worship of a single Prajnaparamita manuscript is said to be more meritorious than worship of a continent piled high with Buddha relics, according to Miranda Shaw. And aside from that, when we have a shrine and build it, or an altar that we have for our own practice, it is said that we should have 3 things on that shrine. One is a Buddha, the second one is a stupa, and the third one is a text. And that text normally is one of these Prajnaparamita texts, the Heart Sutra being one of the most common. Femaleness is central to the metaphor of Prajnaparamita, representing motherhood, generation, or birth. So the male Buddhas have a female source, as of course we all do. The source of wisdom is what qualifies them as Buddhas. And Miranda Shaw says, Prajnaparamita is an enduring reality, whereas her children, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, are ephemeral and illusory. Prajnaparamita, mother of the Buddhas, is the sole reality. So at the ultimate level, the ultimate wisdom that is represented by Prajnaparamita is that reality. So she reveals the world as it is, its true nature. And often we use that phrase when we're talking about enlightenment or the ultimate realization or ultimate truth and so forth. The understanding the true nature of reality, or understanding the true nature of mind. She is the inexhaustible storehouse of truth. When Buddhas teach, Prajnaparamita is the source of their teachings, the ultimate reality being the root source of those teachings. In the 8,000 line perfect wisdom scripture, we find the dramatic claim that veneration of Prajnaparamita supersedes that of the Buddhas because she is the real immanent cause and condition of the Buddha's omniscience. So Prajnaparamita represents the very ultimate nature, the very ultimate source of all of the teachings of the Buddha. Well, let's take a look at the Heart Sutra just briefly. That most famous of these Prajnaparamita texts is often recited daily by monks and nuns in their practice. The heart in the title refers to the transcendent wisdom, the heart essence. It transcends all concepts. The earliest text dates from around the 7th century. It was actually one of the later Prajnaparamita texts, yet it contains the heart essence of these texts and the teachings on emptiness. It is based on the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. If you recall, the first turning of the wheel, the Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Noble Path, and so forth. The second turning of the wheel was on emptiness, which this is a part of. And the third turning of the wheel was on Buddha nature. The most famous lines from the Heart Sutra are these. Emptiness, the form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form, form is not other than emptiness. So what is emptiness? Well, the Buddha described it as a lack of, or being empty of, having inherent existence. That is, a self-existence of some kind, independent of anything else. And at the time, there were three factors that were considered to determine whether something had inherent existence. First of all, they had to be independent of anything else. They had to be permanent, and they also had to be partless. That is, they couldn't be subdivided into other things. Nagarjuna added to that the idea of dependent arising or interdependence, which same basic idea that if something has to be independent in order to have an inherent existence, emptiness then refers to interdependence, showing that they are not independent. In the Heart Sutra, in those lines that we just described, form is emptiness. Well, if form is empty of inherent existence, then it is empty. All forms, objects, things, and so forth, arise from various causes and conditions and are impermanent, or they can be subdivided in some way. Emptiness is form, so being empty of self-existence necessitates some form in order for that to arise in dependence on other causes and conditions. So one necessitates the other from that point of view. And then emptiness is not other than form. Form is not other than emptiness. You can't have one without the other, if you will. The text goes on to refer to all of the skandhas, not only form, but feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness as well, being empty of this inherent nature. Or you could say they represent relative truth rather than the ultimate itself, which is beyond concepts. It's beyond the ideas of form, perceptions, and so forth. But this is a conceptual understanding. So Nagarjuna added something called the tetradilemma, the four-part dilemma, to try and create a direct experience of this idea of emptiness. So the first one is, emptiness is not a thing. Well, the natural, logical thing to do would be to say, okay, if it's not a thing, then it's no thing, it's nothing. The second one is, emptiness is not nothing. And well, okay, so it's not this and it's not that, so maybe it's some combination of both. No, emptiness is not both. Okay, so if it's not this, it's not that, or the lack of that, and it's not both, it must be neither. It's the only thing left. No, emptiness is not neither. So we are left with a logical paradox here. It cannot be explained by logic, it just is. And that is the direct experience. So it's beyond logic or description, it just is. So we sometimes refer to it as suchness or thatness or isness, if you will. Dzogchen uses a metaphor to help describe this, that emptiness is like a mirror. So a mirror reflects images, but it does nothing, yet the images or reflections manifest. So the mirror in this metaphor is emptiness, and the reflections are the appearances or the manifestations. So if there are no reflections, there's no mirror. If there's no mirror, there are no reflections. So that's just one taste. Another metaphor used in Dzogchen is that emptiness is like space. It is vast and open without a center or periphery. It just is. There's no way to try to describe it. Is that contradictory? Not necessarily. Je Tsongkhapa, founder of the Gelugpa tradition, the Dalai Lama's tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, pointed out that we must use words and concepts to point the way. So it's helpful, but it's like pointing to the moon. If you focus on the finger, you don't see the moon. So this is still relative truth, not the real thing or ultimate truth. But we can achieve a direct experience of the real thing, although it too, at least in the beginning, is a semblance or an approximation. So over time then that becomes the real thing. Well, let's look then at the personification of Prajnaparamita as a mother, a teacher, and a guide in the tradition. Initially, there was no attempt to envision her as a deity with a specific color, posture, gestures, attire, ornaments, and so forth, as we commonly see for deities in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. She transcends symbolic representation, and just as does transcendent wisdom itself. She is omnipresent. She can be present, encountered during any experience or activity, not just meditation. Although I would say that is true of all of the deities as well. The literature predates the images that we have. The art of the 1st and 2nd centuries, for example, depict supernatural beings that are more worldly in nature. Illustrations of the Buddha's life, vignettes of lay worship, auspicious symbols, etc. But no image of worshiping Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. The literature focuses on the manuscripts rather than the images. The earliest known image is from the 7th century. She is standing with a wish-granting mudra, the palm open in this way, holding a lotus that supports a text. And the earliest description from that same period is that she is golden in color, seated on a white lotus, so seated rather than standing in the actual image that we have, with one hand in the teaching mudra and the other holding a text, presumably the Prajnaparamita text itself. The evidence of sculptures begins to appear in the 8th century. There are variations in the images of Prajnaparamita. In some she is golden in color, others she is white. She may have 2 arms or 4. For example, she may have 2 in the teaching mudra or the meditation mudra where we put our hands together and touch the tips of the thumbs. Or her right hand may hold a vajra, which in Tibetan represents emptiness, although it is not described in the texts, and the left holding a text or a lotus with the text. So she may have on the left side a lotus with the text on the top, similar to images of Manjushri, the male Buddha of wisdom. So she may show a right hand on the knee with the wish-granting mudra, similar to what we see with white Tara, for example. She uses wears divine garments, gems, and a jeweled crown, sometimes with 5 Buddhas represented. She sits cross-legged in posture. She is sometimes depicted as a part of the 3 jewels, the 3 jewels being the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So we take refuge in the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But in the images, there is Shakyamuni Buddha, representing, of course, the Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, or Chinrezi, representing the Sangha, and a 4-armed version of Prajnaparamita, representing the Dharma. Her seed syllable is D, D-H-I. Usually, there's sometimes an H added to the end of that. And this is the same seed syllable as Manjushri, the male Buddha of wisdom. But overall, there are relatively few images of her, and the focus is more on the manuscripts as the primary icons. Her mantra, in the Heart Sutra, we have Om Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Soha. The translations vary somewhat. For example, Om gone, gone, gone beyond, gone far beyond enlightenment. Or the last part, gone beyond, beyond, hail awakening. Or gone altogether beyond, oh what an awakening, all hail. In the Dalai Lama's book on the Heart Sutra, he translates it as Om, go, go, go beyond, go thoroughly beyond, and establish yourself in enlightenment. The literal translation, gate means gone, para, across to the other side, sam, joining together. So para samgate is gone across to the other side, joining together with something. That something is Bodhi. Bodhi, he means to wake up, to understand, or in the Buddhist context, to awaken. Soha, or svaha in Sanskrit, is an expletive from the Vedic ritual, meaning well said. So then we would have Om, gone, gone, gone across to the other side, gone across to the other side, joining together with awakening, well said. Or, in a simpler version, Om, gone, gone, gone across to the other side, gone across to enlightenment, well said. So you can get the idea from these variations of the meaning of the mantra. Its use in practice is to protect from dangers by the divine energy that is concentrated in the mantra. And it carries a liberating power as well, confers virtues, protections, and of course, full awakening. There are other mantras in other texts. And also there's an example of another of those inscribed in clay seals that were worn around the neck as protective talismans in the 8th to 10th centuries. Her practices are not common. The Prajnaparamita deity yoga sadhana practices have their own mantra. But, for example, in the Nyingma, she's largely been replaced with Yeshe Tsogyal, the consort of Guru Rinpoche. Her name means victorious ocean of primordial wisdom. So you can see the connection there. And also Machik Labdran, who founder of Chud, the Chud lineage cutting through ego. She studied Prajnaparamita as a youth, and so Chud incorporates Prajnaparamita as a part of that practice as well. So it cultivates the perfection of wisdom. So in conclusion today for this talk, there are 2 aspects to enlightenment. There is wisdom, the prajna, the feminine principle, and compassion, or skillful means, the male principle. In Tantra, the wisdom refers to the female deities or consorts of male deities, as well as the female partners of male practitioners, and they join together to realize bliss emptiness. Bliss referring to the experiential component or male principle, and emptiness referring to the wisdom component and female principle. So divine feminine moved with stunning swiftness from marginal to the very essence of the meaning of Tibetan Buddhism, and became the pinnacle of the pantheon of deity representations. All others are born from the mother of all Buddhas, Prajnaparamita, born from emptiness, the birthless birth. Miranda Shah says, Buddhas may attain liberation, but Mother Prajnaparamita is liberation. So this concludes this talk, as well as this series on the sacred feminine, women in Tibetan Buddhism. Thank you for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed the talks and gotten something of benefit from them. And you can check our website. Our new website going up is www.awam Institute, together as one word, no spaces or periods or anything, .org. So www.awaminstitute.org. So until then, abide softly and deeply in pure natural awareness, without attachment or aversion, with loving kindness and compassion for all beings, always and always. Tashi Dele.